Hi there, and welcome. It's great to have you here with us. My name's Tim Sneath, and I work on product and UX for Flutter and Dart. And with me is Andrew Brogden, who leads developer relations for Flutter and Dart.
Hey, everybody.
For those of you who are new to this space, Flutter is an open source toolkit supported by Google for building beautiful, fast user experiences for any platform. Flutter lets you write your UI with a single shared codebase, whether you're targeting web, iOS, Android, or desktop. And it's built to short-circuit that traditional edit, compile, deploy, debug cycle, with support for iterative live coding where you can hot reload changes without restarting your app. It's fast, with hardware-accelerated graphics, regardless of which platform you're deploying to. And with pixel-level control over your UI, Flutter gives you the ability to create beautiful, tailored, highly branded experiences that put your ideas to the forefront. So with Flutter, you no longer have to ask, what platform am I targeting? Instead, your idea and your creativity are the things that come to the forefront. If you're a company shipping for multiple platforms, never again do you have to run at the speed of the slowest team. Instead, all of your engineering resources can be invested in building an amazing experience on all the platforms you're targeting. We started Flutter a few years ago now, and since then, we've been on a path to add more developer productivity and robustness, to add new platforms like web and Windows, to support hybrid apps that combine Flutter and existing code, and to build out the ecosystem of supporting packages. And today, with the launch of Flutter 3, we have reached the culmination of our journey to fill out the platform supported by Flutter, with stable support for the last two remaining major operating systems. So, with Flutter 3, you can target 6 distinct platforms out of the box: iOS and Android, mobile and desktop web browsers, Windows, and now macOS and Linux. On desktop and mobile, the Flutter engine and the Dart toolchain compile your released code to ARM or Intel machine instructions. And then on the web, your code is compiled to highly optimized JavaScript that uses the latest web standards, like WebGL. So as an app author, you don't have to worry about idiosyncrasies or differences between platforms. You just focus on the user experience and the business logic of your app. But Flutter isn't a lowest common denominator experience either. You can still integrate with native code, whether it's through plugins for system services like Camera or Bluetooth, or with existing code you've already written.
Let's take a look at an app designed to run everywhere. This is a sample that demonstrates multi-platform UI for a music player. As you can see, on mobile, it's built around a bottom navigation bar. On the home screen, there's a tab controller for quickly flipping between panels and content. And there's a button to switch between light and dark themes. It's pretty cool, but this also screams mobile UI, right? So let me pull it up on desktop. You can see a lot of the same components are there. There's clearly a lot of code reuse here, right? But the layout is different. It's something that feels natural for desktop, with navigation on the left, bigger fonts, and just attention spent on those kinds of details. The app is using the latest stuff from both Flutter and Material to make this possible. And as it happens, I've also got a copy up and running on Android, as well as one in Chrome, so you can see those platforms as well. Web in particular is interesting because browsers run on phones, tablets, desktops, all sorts of devices. Window sizes can change, and you need something that's able to be responsive when that happens. Making sure all those screens and platforms work is something Hot Reload and the ability to run multiple copies of an app at once can really help with. Say I wanted to see if the text widget that says good morning could handle super long strings without overflowing. I can hop into the code, add a much longer string, and save the file. And I immediately see that the text is properly truncated on all 4 platforms, which is great because otherwise I would have just broken my teammate's app in front of 100,000 people. And that's just plain rude. Instead, hopefully you've gotten a peek at what Flutter's developer experience can be like. By the way, if you'd like to play with this app and learn more about how the code was put together, check out the workshop From Boring to Beautiful and the tech session, Diving into Flutter Desktop, right here at I/O. Both of them feature this sample.
So let's talk about Flutter on each class of device type: desktop, web, and mobile. And we'll start with desktop. In our last stable release, we added support for Flutter on Windows. And today, we're adding macOS and Linux. Supporting macOS means you can now build beautiful custom experiences, like Superlist, which releases as a beta today.
Hey everyone, I'm Brandon, head of design and one of the founders of Superlist. Superlist is a venture-backed app with a founding team who've built and sold several successful startups. Today, I'm stoked to share with you how we used Flutter to rethink task and project management. In today's world, where our work and our personal lives are more intertwined than ever, we created a tool to help us get things done. Be it big projects at work, a personal project after hours, or even something as mundane as planning a family trip. When starting Superlist, we knew we wanted amazing design, flawless user experience, and an app that felt consistent across devices and operating systems. It quickly became clear that Flutter was the right foundation for our tech stack. That focus on amazing design means it's important to have full control over every pixel on screen. Whether it's a static page or an animation, our aim is to make the product feel as delightful as possible. Flutter allows us such granular control over screens and provides great out-of-the-box animations to get things moving, shaking, and shining. It let us do things we would have never tried in any other platform and helped us create an app that felt familiar but special. As work in general and to-dos in particular are everywhere in our lives, it was important for us to be cross-platform from the start. While we're a Mac app today, we're actively building Windows and Android and iOS all within the same Flutter code. Lastly, for us, note-taking and collaboration with others is a core need of our app. This is why we also built the best rich text editing toolkit for Flutter development. Super Editor, as we've come to call it, is the first of many packages we hope to give back to the community. Super Editor is an open source, rich text editor that's easy to add to your app while offering complete customizability over what you can do with it. In addition to text formatting, it supports custom components, and you can embed any widget in a Super Editor document. Working with and contributing to a framework that is having such a big impact on app development is an awesome experience. I hope you feel the love and attention we've put into Superlist, and that as a tool makes your life easier and your work more delightful. If you want to try Superlist for yourself, visit superlist.com where you can sign up for an invite to our beta program.
If you want, you can also build apps that fully embody the macOS system look and feel with the macOS UI package. And you can sign your executables so that users don't get warnings about untrusted publishers. Now that we've covered Flutter support for macOS, let's take a second to talk about Apple Silicon. This is the new processor architecture that powers Apple's latest hardware. Flutter's worked on Apple Silicon since day one, but Flutter 3 completes our support.
When it comes to Apple Silicon, there are two developer journeys that really matter: how to use those machines as your development environment, and how to compile binaries in the ARM 64-bit architecture so they run natively on Apple Silicon. Today, we've got announcements for both. First up, the latest releases of Dart and Flutter offer tools that run natively on ARM 64 processors. You'll no longer need to rely primarily on Rosetta translation when analyzing or compiling code for a Flutter app. That also means there are now two versions of the Flutter SDK for macOS, ARM and Intel. So for new folks, we've updated our Getting Started guide to direct you to the right one. If you've already installed the SDK, just run Flutter upgrade as you normally would, and the system will make sure it grabs the right binaries for you and your platform. Once that new version of the SDK is on your system, those running on Apple Silicon should see some nice speed improvements in everyday life. For example, I use the fact that I'm in this tech session as an excuse to request a new laptop from the company. Here's me analyzing the Flutter gallery on my x64 machine. And here's the same thing with native tools on the new one. Considering I analyze code 100 times a day, That's not bad. When it comes time to deploy an app to macOS, I've got some news there as well. Today, we're announcing that Flutter supports building both x64 and ARM64 binaries. Previously, Flutter could build apps that ran on Apple Silicon, but only through Rosetta translation. Now, however, the SDK delivers code compiled natively for ARM64, so your users can get the kind of speed and stability they expect from well-made applications. As it happens, I was looking through some of the submissions to our recent Flutter puzzle contest, and I saw this one from Gordon Hayes, who's doing some cool physics stuff with Flame and Forge 2D. If you're like me, you see something like this and you think, hey, that's cool, but what if I had, 3 of them? Or 6? I'm just going to play with this for a little bit. Tim's got some more stuff to talk about, though.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so that's one of the 2 new platforms we're supporting today. Flutter 3 also supports building Linux apps. And this work comes through a joint collaboration with Canonical, who are the organization behind one of the most popular distributions of Linux, Ubuntu. And thanks in large part to Canonical's work, we have a suite of packages that add tailored UI and integration with system services. And that includes things like dbus, gsettings, network manager, Bluetooth, desktop notifications, as well as a comprehensive theme and widget set for Yaru, which is the Ubuntu look and feel. On web, we've been busy with polish in the run-up to Flutter 3. And I want to share 2 specific examples of that work that I think you'll like. Firstly, we've added a new API that provides you control over the loading of the Flutter framework, engine, and your content. And essentially, this lets you run Flutter in headless mode on the web. So you might use this, for example, to preload your Flutter app while you're showing a login screen or a progress bar. Secondly, we've done work to take advantage of the latest web standards for image decoding. And here's an example right now of how all this shakes out. What you're looking at right now is a stress test of GIF animation, where we have hundreds of GIF images all being loaded and decoded in real time. And with the new Web Codecs API, which is already supported on Chrome 99 or higher and coming soon to other browsers, we can take advantage of new APIs to greatly speed up the processing of images, which helps with things like jank-free scrolling.
Speaking of things built with Flutter Web, the suite of debugging and profiling tools that ships with the Flutter SDK, Flutter DevTools, also got some new features in this release. If you haven't used DevTools before, you can find its local host URL on the command line anytime you call Flutter Run. And the Flutter IDE plugins also have buttons that'll open DevTools while debugging. Once you do, you can take advantage of some new performance tools. Head over to the Performance tab and look for a button that says Enhanced Tracing. Give it a click and you'll see 3 new tracing options. These allow you to add the Flutter build, layout, and paint events to the performance information captured by DevTools. You can see it here in this flame graph, letting me know how long each part of the widget lifecycle occupied in part of a recent run of my app. Flutter DevTools also now offers the ability to turn off some rendering types like clipping, opacity, and shapes in order to help narrow down any performance issues that are preventing your app from hitting the right frame rate. These are the latest features to make their way to DevTools, but since last year's I.O., a bunch of new things have landed, including improvements to the Network tab, a dedicated plugin for Provider that can help keep track of change notifiers and other app state, and more.
Okay, so we talked about how Flutter 3 adds macOS and Linux support, and the improvements we've made to web development and tooling. But many Flutter developers are using it for mobile today. And we got plenty here too, whether you're targeting phones or other devices. Firstly, Flutter already works great on tablets, and in Flutter 3, we've introduced foldable support, thanks in part to contributions from Microsoft. We've added Material 3 widgets, which enable your app to match the latest and greatest experiences on new Android devices. And we've re-architected the platform view support on Android, which, among other things, will make native inline ads much smoother.
Today, we're also releasing a project called Put Flutter to Work. This is a sample application and sort of a demo rolled into one, and you can find it on GitHub. The repo includes a Flutter module for capturing user sentiment, which is one of those cross-cutting business needs that can show up on every platform. Alongside the module are 3 native newsfeed apps, one that's a website, one built with Kotlin for Android, and one built with SwiftUI. Each of those imports the module and displays it as the feed is scrolled. The idea is to provide a realistic example of how Flutter can save development cycles, and to make it as easy as possible to try Flutter in your own applications and see how it feels with your code and your team. To that end, the Flutter module itself is available for download, again, right from the repo, as a pre-built framework for iOS, an Android library and AAR format, and as a zipped-up web project ready to be dropped into a folder of your web app and loaded via iframe. So if you're someone who's already got some published apps and you thought, hey, Flutter looks kind of cool, but I'd like to know how it would work in my app, now you can find out in about 10 minutes with the instructions in the README. Let me show you an example. This is the same newsfeed sample for iOS that's in the repo, but I've pulled out the original Flutter integration, and now I'm going to add it back step by step. First thing I do is head to flutter.dev/go/try, which takes me straight to the repo. A few clicks later, I've got the frameworks downloaded onto my machine so I can hop into Xcode and link them into the project. There we go. Now that they're available for import, let's get that Flutter code to work. I've got a method here that fires every so often as the user scrolls. I can add a call and define a new method to present the Flutter view controller, which is provided by one of the frameworks I just imported. Inside, I just instantiate that controller, and then I can present it. Now, when I build my app and scroll down a bit, there's Flutter, ready to capture user sentiment and then return me to enjoying the news. One detail I should mention is that you don't need the Flutter SDK installed on your machine to try this out. Flutter can package up a module as a complete artifact, and that's what this repo's GitHub action does when it creates these downloadable frameworks. The goal here is to make it as quick and easy as possible to see Flutter in your stuff. Once you've got it integrated, of course, if you find you want to start playing with the code and hacking around, you can download the Flutter SDK, fork the repo, and start creating your own builds.
Okay, so we've spent some time talking about Flutter 3 on desktop, web, and mobile. But this is also a great release for Dart, with some new language improvements that we think you'll love, whether you're building with Flutter or whether you're creating a command line tool. I'm going to call out 3 language features in particular. Firstly, we've greatly enhanced enumerations. So when defining an enum type, you can now give it additional fields or methods, getters, even operators. Enums can implement interfaces and apply mix-ins. Almost everything you can do with a class, you can now also use inside an enum declaration. Secondly, we've loosened the restrictions around named arguments. Named arguments can make APIs easier to understand at the point of use by making it clear what each argument represents, while positional arguments win at brevity. Before today, Dart required named arguments to be at the end of the argument list. And that restriction is kind of frustrating when you have a positional argument like a large collection literal or a function expression that looks best at the end. And now Dart lets you order your positional and named arguments in whatever way reads best. And lastly, here's one that's already reducing thousands of lines of code in the Flutter framework, and we think will also save boilerplate in your own apps. This feature came from a member of the community, and we jumped right on it. Dart already lets you use this before a constructor parameter to implicitly initialize a field on the class. Now we also let you use super to implicitly pass that parameter to the superclass's constructor. One example you might be familiar with is a stateless widget in Flutter, which on construction typically takes a key parameter, which is then passed up the chain. And in the example here, you can see that outline button just passes a bunch of parameters up to its parent. And now with the super syntax, you can chop out all of that verbosity.
All right, so that's what's new in Dart. Let's talk a little bit about some new stuff from Firebase. Some of y'all may have noticed some preparations taking place over the last couple months. For example, the codebase for the Flutterfire plugins was recently moved from Firebase Extended into the main Firebase account on GitHub. And the docs, which had previously been hosted at firebase.flutter.dev, were migrated directly into the Firebase developer site alongside Android, iOS, web, and the other supported platforms. All of this leads up to today at I/O22 when Firebase announced official support for Flutter. If you're someone who's been with Flutter for a while, you might hear that and think, wait, I've been using Firebase for like 3 years. And you're not alone. 62% of Flutter developers also use Firebase. We've worked with the Firebase team on code and videos and put Firebase into Dartpad. They've been great partners for Flutter. The difference that you'll see in the future is the two products working to be even better together. For example, when you go to register an app, Flutter is now presented as a choice alongside the other platforms. Choosing Flutter takes you to the registration page, which walks you through installing the right tools, like the Firebase command line tool, and the Flutterfire Dart package. That's a command line tool as well, made specifically to help Flutter devs integrate Firebase. It can create a Firebase project, register the platforms you want to use, and automatically create a Dart file with all the right constants.
Did you just create a project called Big Brogfire 7?
Naming things is hard. Also, sometimes it takes me 7 tries to record a screencast properly. The Firebase tools worked every time, though. In addition to those, the Firebase team also had some developer product updates. Crashlytics, for example, helps devs around the world track the stability of their apps and get rapid notification of any new trends or problems. Previously, the stack traces presented by Crashlytics weren't symbolicated for Dart. That's a word I sometimes say in meetings to look smart, but it really just means all the individual spots in the compiled code weren't tagged with the source code names and line numbers they correspond to. As a result, Crashlytics could only provide offsets for the functions that appeared in stack traces. With the latest release, though, that's changed. Now, Flutter devs who integrate Crashlytics in their apps will get complete crash reports that show both native and Dart symbols for the full stack trace, making it easier to know exactly where a problem lies. If that sounds like something you could really use in your own applications, Elena and Konstantin from Firebase Engineering have a talk with more announcements and all the details right here at I/O22. I was lucky enough to go to one of their rehearsals, so I actually know the code to catch exceptions in Big Brogfire 7. First, I add the Firebase Crashlytics package. Then, in my main method, I drop in a little code to initialize Firebase. And now I can do something incredibly stupid, which is great. I've made a nice career of it. To deal with my foolish code, I can use this method from the Firebase Crashlytics plugin, which will capture the error and stack trace and then send it up to the server. Once it's up there, I can head to Crashlytics in the Firebase console, and there's my exception. When I drill down, I can see the complete stack trace, along with the Dart SDK telling me I should probably not try parsing integers from random English sentences. So, if you're like me and you ship the occasional bug, or you just like to know a little bit more about Firebase and Flutter, check out Monitoring Your Flutter App Stability with Firebase Crashlytics from the Firebase team, right here at I/O.
All right, that's great. So we've seen how Flutter 3 is the culmination of everything we've been working on over the last few years, bringing beautiful, fast apps to Linux and macOS, improving performance on the web, adding updates for iOS and Android, along with new Dart language enhancements and Crashlytics support. We wanted to show you one example of a customer who has really leaned into Flutter. And that's ByteDance, who are the company behind TikTok. Let's see what they've been doing.
字节跳动是一家科技公司，公司旗下运营一系列成功的用户产品、企业应用及服务。我们的产品和服务涵盖信息、教育、娱乐等不同的领域。公司发展的原动力得益于我们强大的工程师文化，以及对高效、优质用户体验的专注。
Flutter， Google 发布的多平台 UI 框架，是我们公司当下的多平台开发战略核心。Flutter 的性能和质量与原生框架一样，甚至更好，这让我们非常兴奋，立刻全力投入开发。我们从最初的几个应用开始，逐渐发展到现在的90多个应用，面向包括移动端、外部端、桌面端以及嵌入式设备等多个平台。这些应用全部由字节跳动的800多名 Flutter 开发者和 Flutter Infer 团队共同支持。我们致力于推动 Flutter 在字节跳动的深度应用， 并对核心框架做出贡献。
极客错题打印机和极客阅卷大师上搭载的应用都是使用 Flutter 开发。Flutter 的 Hot Load 特性让工程师可以高效调试代码，快速将 UI 设计师的想法变为现实。另外，借助于 Flutter 的 FFI 能力，可以直接调用 C++ 层代码，提高与硬件交互的效率，同时实现端上深度学习模型的部署。目前已经有超过200所学校正在使用搭载了这2款应用的智能设备，并且数量还在不断增加。
字节跳动最有趣的 Flutter Web 应用之一是 Alchemy。Alchemy 是一款服务抖音内容创作的内部工具，为 PGC、UGC 用户提供方便有趣的素材生成工具，并批量产出受版权保护的设计素材。
字节跳动还有不少由 Flutter 支持的多平台移动应用。抖音火山版是一款在中国非常受欢迎的应用，人们可以通过分享短视频来展示他们的爱好、技能与日常。我们还有一套为企业提供协作工具的应用 Lark。Lark 是一款支持协同办公的一站式应用，通过音视频会议、文档共享及一系列项目管理与能效工具来支持即时通信。整个 Lark 的生态系统全部适用于 iOS 端、Android 端、Web 端与桌面端平台。
总而言之 ，Flutter 拥有令人难以置信的超高效率。与原生双端开发相比 ，Flutter 为我们团队节省了大约1/3的时间。我们希望在未来可以用 Flutter 创造出更美好的多平台本地化应用。
Okay, so Flutter 3 is available today, and we're so excited to share it with you. And that about wraps it up for all the ways you can build apps with Flutter.
Wait, hang on. There's one type of application we haven't covered yet. Something we're all familiar with as developers is the need to keep scope realistic and focus hard on doing a few things really well. The idea of saying, well, we could go in both of these directions, but instead, we're going to focus just on this one and blaze that trail for everybody. And one of the fun things about open source is that someone else can come along and say, hey, I see you're going that way. Totally get it. Big fan. But I'm going to go the other way. And I'm going to spend some time making that great as well, because this is an open source ecosystem and I can do that. Over the last few years, game developers building with Flutter have done exactly that. And while much of the effort going into Flutter has been about making great application UI, they've taken the same hardware acceleration, portable rendering stack, and native performance and used it to create fun. They've had success, too, with thousands of games using Flutter now published in the Play Store. So, today, we're announcing the Flutter Casual Game Toolkit. It's a starter kit of resources, including a sample game, learning materials, community spaces, and info about credits for Google Developer Services to help you get from a great idea to this. Now you know what he does when it's my turn to talk. Let's start by taking a look at the sample. This is a published open source version of Tic-Tac-Toe. We kept the game loop itself simple in order to focus on the particular developer journeys common to building games. There's menuing, for example, using widgets to capture settings and move in and out of actually playing. The game also has a soundtrack and plays sounds in response to the user's input. And there's some custom shader and painting code to create animated UI that looks like it's being drawn onto the screen. In addition, the sample shows how to hook into the right platform services and provide a complete experience to players. On iOS, that means the Apple Game Center, and on Android, the app integrates with Google Play Games. Between the two, you get examples of leaderboards and achievements. Because many developers choose to monetize their games with ads, the sample also includes the Google Mobile Ads plugin and shows how to load and display banners and interstitial ads. You can find a link to the sample on the new game developer page at flutter.dev/games. Included are a link to the repo, along with a video walkthrough that takes you through the codebase and key features. And there are a number of links to things like asset marketplaces, creation tools, packages for Dart and Flutter, and more. You can also find a link to a dedicated Discord channel for game developers on the Flutter Dev subreddit's Discord server. We partnered with them to get it set up, and to be honest, game developer or not, that's a community worth checking out. They have channels for a variety of skill levels and topics. We also reached out to some of our partners here at Google, and as a result, the Solution Kit contains info on up to $900 in service credits for eligible developers. $400 of that is for cloud and Firebase services, which can be used on hosting and other services to bring your backend to life. The rest arrives in the form of ad spend matching from Google Ads. By creating an app campaign to raise awareness of your game, you could be eligible for Google to match the first $500 of your ad budget. So, that's the Flutter Casual Game Toolkit. We're already enjoying the games y'all have built so far. Google recently sponsored a puzzle challenge, inviting developers to reimagine the classic sliding puzzle with Flutter. Thousands of folks sent in projects, including one that you saw earlier, and it was amazing to see the wide arrays of styles and mechanics. Check these out.
You know, when we think about Flutter, we don't think of it as just like a Google Teams product. We think of it as everybody's product. It's true that at Google, we're certainly contributing a lot of code to the Flutter repo. But the Flutter team is much larger, with more contributors who don't work at Google than ever. We think of Flutter as including the package ecosystem. There's about 25,000 packages on PubDev, including big publishers like Adobe, Amazon, and Microsoft, and Flutter favorites like SQLite and Sentry. But it also includes the thousands of packages for everything from navigation to UI. Flutter also includes the thousands of contributions that developers like yourselves have made to Flutter 3, as well as the feedback you've given to help us focus our resources. And even during these difficult times, many of you have started to meet up again, and that's also great. We've seen meetups and user groups in 68 countries around the world. And many of you might have attended one of the over 400 Flutter festivals that have taken place around the world. So, a big thank you to all of you who've made Flutter what it is. We're so proud to be on this journey with you. Have a great I/O and have fun with Flutter.